Have you ever gone shopping and made an impulse purchase? Maybe bought something and then after you've got it home thought to yourself, really shouldn't have spent the money to buy that? Kind of have a regret? What happens if you buy a house? Buyer's remorse. It's the real estate show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. As I said in the opening, if you've ever bought something and then had some regrets, you know the feeling of that buyer's remorse. Maybe you shouldn't have bought that particular item. When it comes to purchasing a house, sometimes buyers tend to move a little bit too fast. And they may have purchased a house that once they're in it, they start to realize, well, maybe this wasn't the right purchase for me. I did a little bit of research and I was looking for some of the common regrets that buyers have once they've purchased a house. One of the biggest ones was they felt they spent too much money. Now, what does that mean, spending too much money? A lot of people fail when they look at purchasing a home of what their total budget needs to be. They forget about the incidentals for the house. They're only looking at the mortgage, principal, interest, and insurance on the house. They're not considering the utility costs that are going to be on the house, the maintenance costs that are going to be on the house, and then of course, the thing that's kind of out of sight, out of mind is that once a year big property tax on your home. So it kind of makes them have a little bit of a regret in that they spent all their money, they put everything into purchasing the house and didn't hold enough back to give them a little bit of a cushion for those incidental expenses. The flip side, or another thing of that, is sometimes people will buy a home that initially they felt was right for them, but the house might have been a little bit too small for their plans of living in that home. Maybe there was something attractive in the house that made that buyer's impulse happen, but total square footage is too small. Maybe the rooms were too small, maybe there's no way to expand. There's a number of different reasons. They wish they had waited and maybe found a house with a little bit more square footage. And then of course you get the buyers that say they bought too big. A lot of times people get impressed with the open floor plans that are in some of the newer homes and the big wide spaces and all that square footage. But they don't take into account that all that open space is going to cost more to cool and more to heat. Or sometimes you'll get a buyer that purchases a home because they feel they're going to be in the home a number of years. National Association of Realtors pointed out that the average buyer now is staying in a home for up to 14 years. If you think about that, folks, it kind of makes sense. If you're a young couple and you're purchasing a home, you're starting a family, you figure you're going to stay in that house while the kids go through elementary, middle school, high school, and then eventually go off to college. So 14 years kind of makes sense. But sometimes life throws curveballs in and things don't go the way we planned. And people who buy a big house with the thought of we're going to eventually grow into it, find that maybe they bit off a little bit more than they can chew. Sometimes the advice that I'll say to a buyer is buy what you can handle. Don't buy too big because you may have regrets when it comes to the expenses of running that house. Let's take a look at this presentation which highlights some of the regrets that buyers have when they purchase a home, and I'll be back to talk about a few more things. As you saw in that presentation, there are a number of different reasons that buyers may have regrets. Let's talk about one of them, and that is the thought that they bought the wrong house. You know, the funny thing is that when you're out looking at houses, you look at a number of them and you find the house that you feel is right for you. Perhaps it's in the right location, it has the right features you're looking for, it's the right size, the right price, and a number of different reasons that you'll make the offer and purchase the home. And then after you're in the home, just for curiosity and self-satisfaction, you tend to continue looking at other houses. And then all of a sudden you see a house that, within the price range that you had just spent money in, has the same kind of features. Maybe it's in a little bit better of a location, and you think to yourself, maybe I bought the wrong house. Maybe if I had waited just a little bit longer, I should have bought that house as opposed to this house. Again, buyer's remorse sets in. Well, don't worry about it. That is just a natural thing that happens. Another thing that was mentioned in that presentation that I found quite interesting is people feeling that they purchased the home without being properly prepared to buy a home. Now, on the Real Estate Show, I've talked many times about preparing to buy a home and the real estate transaction, what's involved, things that you should assemble together when you're applying for a mortgage, and so forth. And sometimes people will purchase a home, and then when they move into it, they think to themselves, maybe I should have been a little bit more prepared. They find that they bit off, again, the saying that I say, they bit off a little bit more than they could chew. They get into the house, and all of a sudden they feel that they weren't prepared. Now they need a lawnmower, they need a snow thrower, they need this, they need that. And they just weren't ready for all the things that are involved as far as home ownership is concerned. Or they didn't think forward enough as far as the expenses that are concerned in running the home. One of the other things is buyers will tend to buy a home and they'll look at it in such a way where, yeah, the home's a little bit dated, but it's within our price range. We can fix those things later on. Well, my advice there is to make sure that you have a plan in place to do those remodeling projects. The house may be in great shape, it may be a little bit dated, it may be very livable, but if you don't have the monies in place to make the changes you want to make, you're going to find yourself again having buyer's remorse and going into a house that maybe you should have found something different that had some of those features that you were looking for. Now let's talk about mortgages. Many buyers out there will go and get a pre-qualification or a pre-approval on a mortgage. They'll then find a house, they'll buy the house, and then as they're making their payments on their mortgage, they'll realize that perhaps the mortgage that they secured wasn't quite the right loan that they should have got for that home. Now, there's a number of different reasons for that, and my only advice in that particular case is take your time talking to your mortgage officer. Make sure that the loan or the mortgage you're going to secure fits the home that you're going to purchase. You want to make sure a number of different factors are involved, and especially if it's an older home and you're going to be looking at some renovations. There are a lot of renovation loans that are out there that might apply better to give you the monies that you need to update that kitchen or update that furnace or whatever might need to be done in the house. So make sure that you follow the consultation of your mortgage officer when it comes to putting together your loans. Another thing that was mentioned in that presentation that I found quite interesting was people that will purchase a home and then regret that the home doesn't have one of the features that they had on their wants and needs list. They, in other words, settled. They figured it's what we can afford, let's just go with it and we'll make do. You want to make sure that you really understand what your needs are in the home that you're looking to purchase. Now, there's many reasons to buy a home, and we've talked about that on the Real Estate Show before. I mean, you may be buying a home as your first home. that you plan to sell in a couple of years and get a bigger home or whatever. Could be a home that you're an investor, you're purchasing the home to fix it up and then resell it. Could be a permanent home, you plan to buy it and live in it, and that's going to be your home forever. Like I said, National Association of Realtors saying average time in a home now is 14 years. It could be a number of reasons. But if you really want a home that has an updated kitchen, look for a home with an updated kitchen. If you're one of these people, and I have many friends, and again, I'm not being insulting here, but I have many friends out there that really don't know how to use a hammer or a saw and have no talent in doing any fix-it type jobs. There's nothing wrong with that, but you want to make sure that if you're buying a house, it's not going to be a house that's going to need a lot of work where you can't do a lot of the work yourself and save some money, because it gets quite expensive to hire contractors and remodelers to come in after the fact. A piece of advice that was given to me, for instance, from a builder was that a lot of the homes that he would build, he always gives the option of the additional expense of finishing the basement area. In other words, putting a family room down in the basement. And people tend to look at the total price of the house, and then they look at the cost of the finished basement option, and they decide not to finish the basement while the house is being constructed. They'll wait till later on. And then they have a regret because they find later on it's much more expensive to finish the basement rather than doing it at the time that the rest of the house is being built. And quite honestly, if you look at the numbers of what that option is, it really doesn't make a big difference as far as the mortgage payment is concerned. So you have to weigh all of your facts, your figures, and your options as far as that's concerned. Let's sit back and look at this short little presentation, and I'll be back with some more commentary on buyer's remorse when you buy a house. I'm talking on the real estate show about buyer's remorse, regrets when people buy a house and then after they're in it, they start thinking maybe this wasn't the right house for me. couple of other things that were mentioned in an earlier presentation were not being prepared. Now, I've talked on the real estate show before about a number of different ways of being prepared to buy a house, as far as assembling your finances, your debts, and so on and so forth. But one of the other things that you need to take into consideration is what you're going to need when you purchase a house. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes people will buy a house and then they're living in the house and all of a sudden they realize, oh geez, I need a lawnmower, I need a snow thrower, I need a hedge trimmer, I need a weed whacker, I need this, I need that, in order to keep basic maintenance up on the house. And they weren't thinking of that when they went to purchase the house in the first place. And all those additional expenses start to gather up. Another thing is they feel that they didn't do, well, for lack of a better word, enough research. Research on the property and the history of the property, research on the area, research on how that is oriented to different things around the area. This is where, if you're not familiar with the neighborhood, your realtor really could come into play to help you in understanding the different things that are going on in the general neighborhood itself. There are also many websites that you can be directed to, which will help you understand. And one of the main websites that you might want to visit when you're looking to purchase a house is to go to the town's website. Every town has a website. And if you go to the town's website in the town that you're planning to live in, it's from there that you can find out different things about school systems and amenities that are around town, shopping centers, and so on and so forth, and get a little history on the town itself to see if it fits in with your lifestyle and what you're specifically looking for. I've had many people want to buy houses for specific reasons, either because of a school system or because of their job situation, or maybe they're an avid walker, or they like to run, or they like to bike, and they want to be near biking trails or walking trails. People like to be next to water. So maybe that's a goal, is to purchase something where they're near a lake, or they're near the ocean, or wherever it might be. So you want to take all those different things into consideration. Let's sit back and watch this short presentation, and I'll be back with some more commentary on buyer's regrets. So you've gone and you purchased the house, and now you're living in the house, and after you've been in it for a month or two, you decide to yourself that it's too small, it's too big, it doesn't have the features that I really wanted, I spent too much money, I'm not prepared, whatever the reason might be. You start having some buyer's remorse, and you decide that the house is the wrong house for you. What do? Well, there's a number of different options. You can just live in the house the way it is and tough it out. You can look at the possibilities of trying to sell the house and buy something else. You have to be very cautious, because if you just got into the house, you're not going to have much equity that's built up. You may end up taking a loss and really having a regret. Or the other situation is you can look at staying in the house for a specific amount of time, then maybe look at refinancing your loan to get the money to make the changes that you want to make. There are options. But the word of the whole purpose here is, in order to avoid that buyer's remorse, take your time, be prepared, get organized, do research, rely on your realtor, work with your mortgage officer to make sure that the house that you buy is the right house for you. This is the portion of the show I call the Real Estate Mailbag. My opportunity to answer questions that are emailed to the address you see on the screen, or just asked to me when I'm out and about in the general public, or even asked to me by fellow realtors, past clients, or potential future clients. The email that came in was talking about paint and different techniques as far as paint is concerned. And the emailer was concerned about the choice of colors and asking the question, I'm going to be putting my house up for sale. Should I paint all the rooms in the house the same color? Well, my advice is it depends on what colors are on your walls. If you have colors that are very bold, that are very unique to your tastes, then yes, maybe you want to neutralize those colors when it comes time to sell your home. The general thought is simply this. You put your house on the market, you have buyers come and take a look at it, and then you rely on the feedback that you're getting from those buyers that are looking at your home, and also the realtor's comments as far as the home is concerned as to whether or not you should repaint everything the same color. You also want to be very careful as far as the colors that you choose should you decide to neutralize the house. My name is Rick Naples. This has been The Real Estate Show. I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.